Hi, this is Dave, and before we get to the show, I wanted to ask you a favor. One of our goals this year is to grow the show so that What Does Star Wars Mean to You reaches more listeners. And that's where we're asking you for help. And it's really easy. Wherever you listen to us, please hit that subscribe button. If you're liking the show, give us a 5-star rating and review on the platform you listen to us. We make a lot of fun of the algorithm and the smash that button thing, but it really does help us get noticed by new fans. And if you want to join in on the conversation, find us on social at Star Wars Mean to You. That's Star Wars Mean, the number 2 in the letter U. Now, let's chat some Star Wars.
So I'm roughly just turning 6, walk into a dark theater, and there's Hoth on the screen. And
oh, wow.
That was my introduction to Star Wars.
Hello there. This is Dave, and I'm an original trilogy kid.
And this is Alora. I'm a prequel trilogy kid.
And welcome to What Does Star Wars Mean to You, the show where we talk to all kinds of fans of Star Wars to take the hate out of the debate and look at the franchise from a certain point of view, one fan at a time. Our guest today is from the podcast that features 3 Generation 1 Star Wars fans just trying to make their way in the Star Wars podcast universe. On their show, HYPERSPACE HEROES Podcast, they also cover science fiction and nerd culture, having guests that have included Star Wars authors, actors, filmmakers, and other podcasters, including us. One of the questions they ask all their guests is, what does Star Wars mean to you? And today we get to turn the tables and find out, what does Star Wars mean to him? Please give a warm hello there to Brown Leader.
Hello there.
Hello there.
Tell us, are you ready to share with the world what Star Wars means to you?
Absolutely.
Woohoo! Then you're in the right place.
You're in the right place tonight.
and I will say, we were asking that question as well before I had heard of you guys. So
yes.
There is
Yes, you have.
No trademark or
mind.
copyright infringement. Yes, exactly.
No, great minds. Exactly.
That's exactly what it is.
So we're going to kick things off with 5 with the Force, which is our 5 kind of go-to, let's get your Star Wars baseline. What is your go-to favorite movie?
Well, I think probably the answer you hear the most often on this show, which would be Empire.
Yep.
That was the first one I saw in theaters. So.
Oh, very
wow.
cool. Dave, let's roll D6. I need to get a die of my own so I can stop asking you to roll whenever.
I need 2.
2. Okay, who's your favorite minor character?
Ooh, favorite minor character. That's a really good one. You guys don't roll 2s very often, I don't think. So
no, we don't.
I've been studying. I've been doing my homework and listening to you guys.
We really don't, actually. That's so funny. Very astute observation.
I was ready for favorite species, favorite droid, favorite, but not favorite minor character. I guess I would have to say right now, my favorite minor character would be Carson Teva.
I'm sorry, I don't recognize the name.
So Carson Teva is played by Paul Sun-Hyung Lee. He has been a growing secondary character in Mando, most recently in Ahsoka, and I think he was in Book of Boba Fett as well. In fact, we have a whole spin-off headcanon about him and Max Lloyd-Jones from Book of Boba Fett, and which is a great story into itself.
Yeah.
So.
What is your favorite line to quote?
Actually, I have 2.
Love that.
One would be hello there, because of, and both of these are because of our podcast. Hello there, because that's how I start off every email I do when I cold call or cold email guests.
Love that.
I always start it with hello there. And funny enough, I've only ever had one person respond with General Kenobi. It's just, and I'm DMing and emailing authors and actors and super fans, and I've only had one. So Wade from Records of the Republic. So kudos to Wade. But the other one would be That's No Moon.
Yeah.
So
I thought you might say that, actually.
Yeah. How can I not? I mean, that's how we sign off every show. So
I was doing a movie marathon recently. I had a foot injury and I was stuck to the couch for a few days. And when the line came up, I actually thought of you.
Well, there you go. We're trying to do that little bit different thing just to make that mark and get remembered by people. So apparently it's working.
It is working.
It's a fun way to go out.
It is. Besides the movies, what is your favorite Star Wars content? And it could be anything.
Right. So, favorite content would be probably outside of the movies. Again, that's kind of a twofold answer. So one would be Mando.
Oh.
Just love Mando. All 3 seasons. I'm a Mando stan, self-admittedly. I will defend that show with warts and all on it.
I love that. We don't get that a lot.
Things.
Yeah.
Right. And it kind of relates to how I, whenever people ask for rankings, I kind of remove the OT from rankings, I remove Mando from rankings, and I've started to kind of remove Clone Wars from rankings because all 3 of those were the starting points for their mediums, that really brought those mediums into,
you're right.
Because of those, we wouldn't have everything else. So Mando was the start of live action, Clone Wars, the start of really modern Star Wars animation, and obviously the OT for starting it all. But so, one favorite content, but I don't have a lot of time to just sit and watch stuff.
Yeah.
So on a daily basis, my actual go-to content is games, actually. So Galaxy of Heroes, which is an online game. I get up every morning, sip my coffee, play that. It's one of those games that once you get far enough in, you play maybe once a day, maybe twice a day. You log in for a few minutes, update things on your game, and then you move on with your day. So that's a little dose of Star Wars for me.
That's fun.
The other is the new Star Wars Hunters that just dropped a couple weeks ago. Love that game. Again, I can just drop in for 5-10 minutes, play around, and I'm off. So those give me kind of my daily dose of Star Wars when I don't have a lot of time to do much else.
I love it when guests bring games on as like their favorite go-to content outside of the films, because you don't hear it a lot. But like, what a fun way to enjoy Star Wars on the daily. Like everyone should return to that state of play every day and like do something that just makes them happy. Anyway,
right. No, that's exactly why I do it. Yeah. Absolutely.
1000%. Okay, so our last Vibe with the Force is actually inspired by one of your reoccurring segments on the Hyperspace Heroes pod, the Collector's Corner. So we wanted to ask you, what is your favorite Star Wars collectible that you own?
Oh, well, geez, that's a great question.
I just want to, I apologize for interrupting, but I just want to say I always love it when the guest turns around and looks at the wall behind them. and just like, what is my favorite?
Right on. Okay, so tangible item, physical item. I have this. I like Funko Pop. I got into Funko Pop. Again, my mind works in weird ways, so I have a very weird mental thread on why I like Funkos, but that's a whole nother thing. But several years ago, okay, so at work, once they found out I was a Star Wars fan, my staff, what do they start getting me for Christmas every year?
Oh, sure.
Star Wars, right? I'm one of the Star Wars guys.
Sure.
And so...
not a bad place to be, having the office know you're the Star Wars guy.
Exactly. In fact, they got me this blanket that's behind me that I use as a backdrop right now. They did custom blankets with our logo for all 3 of us because we all work at the same place.
That's really cool.
But the favorite one would probably be this Japanese Funko that I got of Boba Fett. All of the packaging is in Japanese. It's an import. I love imports, things that you don't find, you just can't find on your American shelf. That kind of goes back to, I guess, my high school and college days when I was real into heavy metal and Metallica especially, and I would deep dive and find every import I could get my hands on when it was still in physical form.
Yep.
And so having a Funko Pop, or it's not a Funko, it's just a bobblehead, but a Japanese import would be kind of cool. My other answer, again, twofold answer, would be probably some of the guests we've had on the show in terms of, in a way, that's a collectible, people that we've brought on. We've had two actors. Chris Bartlett was on my bucket list, and we managed to get him for episode 75. And so from a podcast standpoint, that would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
I love that you mentioned one of your favorite collectibles as being guests on your show, because I've been having and maybe we'll cut all this too. I'm reflecting on that because we we've received some feedback recently, like guests will send us like messages between them and their family about being on our show, or like they'll private message us and say they're going through a hard time, and like our conversations have like helped them in some way. And that's been really profound, because I started doing this with Dave as just kind of like a fun thing.
You know? Lark.
Yeah, like kind of like I just was like, oh, I get to talk to people about Star Wars. That just sounds really fun. But there's actually like this really beautiful, like wonderful community that's coming out of it. And like people really take something away from these conversations in ways that I didn't consider until it was kind of right in front of me. So I love that, like, yeah, your treasured collectibles are what you're bringing to the fandom. That's really cool. Yeah.
Right. No, and that's funny. That's kind of been our journey as well. You know, we just started for fun because we were in each other's offices too much talking at work and getting the side eye from the bosses. So, and I was a podcast fan. I didn't really listen to any Star Wars podcasts at the time, but I was a podcast fan, and I was like, I love listening to podcasts. I love the medium. I love long form conversation. And so I was like, well, I had kind of been learning how to podcast. I had another one that I was doing on the side for fun, learning the technology, how to do it, you know, on the cheap as much as possible. And, you know, because it's a hobby, right? I'm not making any money from this, but yeah, same thing. So it started off as kind of a lark. We're like, and I think my co-host didn't even think we'd make it a few episodes, you know, and a lot of podcasts don't. And as we were approaching, you know, episode 20 and 22 and then 25, we're just like, yeah, I think we're going to be around for a while. And that's same thing, Alora. It's just, you know, the people that we've met, that we've had on as guests, the people that we've gotten to know, like you guys, you know, and I've become a big fan of your show now. It's on my rotation as soon as it hits my inbox, you know, and because I love the conversations that you have with people. I can hear the warmth. I can hear the genuine interest in the guests, and I can feel how comfortable they are talking to you guys.
Oh, thank you.
The feelings reciprocated. Yeah. Wow. All the good feels here.
Yeah, exactly. I'm Gen X, so it's very hard for me to accept a compliment without being snarky about it. So I'm just going to go, thank you. I appreciate that.
It took me until my last, not my current administrative assistant, but the previous one, to really get on my case about being able to accept compliments and accept gifts. Mm-hmm. I've always been super private at work, and I've been there for 29 years, and I've always been super private. And it was only like the last 5, 6, 7 years that I people got to know that I was the Star Wars guy. And because I kept it all, like, I'm just like, I don't want I'll heap lots of praise. Yeah. I don't mind doing that. But accepting it, it's very, very hard for me. And it's really been a journey to learn to accept that.
Yeah. I come from the generation where we just say sorry for everything.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I know, right? I was on a job recently, and I was working for somebody, and she looked at me and she goes, "We don't say sorry. If you say sorry to me again, you're out of here." And I was like, okay.
You're like, whatevs.
I like that.
Well, I think when Dave and I were growing up, it was more like if we said sorry, it was like, I'm going to give you something. Sorry.
Yeah.
You know?
Exactly.
Well, let's go back to the Star Wars point of view.
All right,
sorry, I totally derailed this.
It's all good. Not at all. You know, we do the same thing on our show. Yeah. It's squirrel.
Well, we're talking about the podcast, and I did want to talk to you about Hyperspace Heroes.
Yeah.
And you kind of got into a little bit of what inspired you. You were talking a lot at work, which is, I think, how all podcasts start, is you just talk to a friend and you realize, hey, we have something to say. How did when you decided to do a Star Wars podcast or a nerd culture podcast, how did you kind of zero in on Hyperspace Heroes as your title? How did you come up with your call signs? Mm-hmm. Take us a little bit through the development of it.
Sure. So we have not always been called Hyperspace Heroes. We actually, we started off as, and for any sensitive listeners, tough luck. We started off as Alderaan A-holes. For the first 25 episodes, and not because we're mean to anybody except ourselves. We're Gen Xers. Yeah. Gen Xers grew up. We make fun of each other. That's our sport. That's our hobby.
That's how we love.
It is. That is how we love. And so we're not afraid to be snarky with each other. We have fun. We're goofballs. And so we started off as Alderaan A-holes, and So we work in a business that has very high levels of confidentiality, and that kind of filters over to our personal lives. And we started off as audio only as well for the first 2 years and 2.5 years, really. But we at the beginning, we were kind of like, especially because we weren't really, I mean, people knew we liked Star Wars at work, but we were just kind of like, we're just going to do this for fun, post it on the internet, on the podcatchers, services, and just for fun. And so we didn't really want to go too far into our personal lives. So I have an aviation background. My dad's a pilot, just retired a couple years ago. I grew up the son of a pilot. I went to flight school, decided it's not what I wanted to do, and went a different route. And so I've always had an affinity for flying, and especially in space flight with X-Wings and Millennium Falcon and all that. And I thought, guys, wouldn't it be fun? Let's do it. Let's have our little shtick, our little thing, and we're going to do call signs, and and we'll say. And we start, because we were Alderaan a-holes, and, there's a red squadron and a blue squadron and a green squadron. So I was like, there's no brown squadron. Let's go brown squadron. And for those that can connect the dots, you can see the connection between Alderaan a-holes and brown squadron. So, we started off as that. We weren't afraid to be snarky with each other. We tease each other. We still tease each other on the show. Scruffy knows that if he's late, and we've already started live streaming, I have a soundbite for Here She Is, Miss America that I play if he jumps on the show late. We're goofballs. We like to have fun.
It's really fun.
And we're not afraid of self-deprecating humor, in terms of for a laugh, because that's just who we are. So we started off as Alderaan a-holes. We had the concept for this logo, for our logo at the time. And once we knew we were going to continue this for a while, I reached out to a friend of one of my kids that had gone to school for graphic arts. She also did freelance. So I said, hey, she was just starting. And I'm like, hey, would you like to design this for us? I'll pay you for it. And she did her job, not only with the design, but she said, Alderaan is trademarked. With fan shows, it's not really much of an issue, but
if it gets successful, it could be a problem. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah,
I was like, in life, there was only two things I was ever afraid of. One was the IRS, and the other was death. But then the third thing I became afraid of in life was Disney lawyers. I just don't want to mess with that. So, I was like, not going to go down that road. So, you know what? All right, we'll pivot. We talked to the guys, and we're like, what can we do? Also, we thought, that name, as funny as it is, I don't know if we're going to get a lot of celebrities. I don't know if we're going to get a lot of, people onto that kind of thing. So we wanted to we rebranded to something a little more neutral, but still fun. Hyperspace is not only used in Star Wars, but it's used in all sorts of science fiction.
Yeah.
So, but we kept the design for the logo. We kept the whole brown squadron thing because we enjoy it.
Yeah.
It's fun. Not many shows do call signs, and then as you guys learned, all of our guests become honorary members of the squadron, and we do call signs, and we do flight designations, as they're called, and it's to build community. And it's been really successful because, we started, I think Brown 5 was the first one we issued, and we're up to I think we gave away Brown 57.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
Not too long ago. Yeah. So, but we kept the logo design, which is actually like headphones around a planet with Princess, and the headphones are
But it
Princess
looks like,
yeah, exactly.
The buns.
Because the one thing we decided, if we ever get rich and famous and we can do custom headphones, we're going to get them to make. We're going to get them to look like Princess Leia's hair buns,
Please
right?
put me in line for those.
right.
Yes.
And again, just having fun, being goofballs with the universe and the genre that we love so much.
Yeah. I want to back up just a little bit because this is one of my favorite questions we ask, and I think we jumped ahead just slightly. But how were you introduced to Star Wars? You said your first introduction to the theater was Empire Strikes Back.
Yes, and that was my first introduction to Star Wars as well. So I was probably 5, going on 6, somewhere around my 6th birthday. I don't know the exact date. My dad and I went and saw it, and we actually walked into the theater right after it had started. So I'm roughly just turning 6, walk into a dark theater, and there's Hoth on the screen. And
oh, wow.
That was my introduction to Star Wars.
Oh,
wow. And I think as far as I can remember, it was my first movie in the theater at all. So, it made quite the impression, and it instilled, one of the things that I love about Star Wars so much is the sense of movie magic, and everything behind the scenes that it's done. I like the escape into, a fantasy. I know it's not real. I know I'm not watching real life. And I think movie magic and the way that they could make it look on the screen back then in 80 and 81, it was just amazing. I mean, it was just literally movie magic to see that on the screen.
Yeah.
And so that was my introduction to Star Wars and my first memory of Star Wars.
Now, this is going to sound like a crazy follow-up question, but did you grow up in a place where there was snow? Like when you walked in and you saw Hawk, so it was also very alien to you because it's just a snow-covered planet.
Right. That's a great follow-up question. So no, I was living in Virginia, just outside Washington, D.C. at the time. And so
I grew up in Alexandria for a beat. That's so funny.
I was in Alexandria.
Oh my God. Okay.
Alexandria, just off Route 1. Yeah. I was probably about 15 minutes from Mount Vernon. So yeah. Well, wow.
So no snow.
Right. Yeah. Or if it snowed, if you got a coating, then everything's shut down.
Yes.
And it's like not half an inch and yes, exactly.
You could still see the color of the ground through the snow, but it was just slightly Yeah.
Right. I had grown up in the South most of my life. So Florida, Georgia, Alabama, and then Virginia. And so, yeah, it was, you're right that with that, Dave, it was just an alien world. It was big. It was on this big screen, bigger than life, and creatures and spaceships and lasers. And, it was just, it was a great first contact with Star Wars.
How did it impact your day to day as a kid and into your teens? Like, was it involved in your day to day, or was it just kind of that thing you enjoyed when it was popped in the VHS?
So it was really kind of the thing that you just enjoyed. And I didn't have a lot of Star Wars toys. My parents actually, I had a lot of like G.I. Joe. I was around when Transformers first came out, and that captivated me.
Right on.
So I had a lot of Transformers and G.I. Joe. Star Wars, I did save up for the one ship that I wanted, which was Slave One and Boba Fett, because that was my guy back then.
Yeah.
Absolutely loved it. But for us, Star Wars was more about just going in the backyard, stick some pine cones, and just, and play acting it out.
Yeah.
For us, whoever could find the straightest stick got to be Luke Skywalker, and everybody with crooked sticks had laser blasters, so.
Oh my God, that's hilarious.
Yeah. So you're always looking for the straightest stick you could, so you could.
Yes. Now, one of the things I feel like is a fan can take two paths during like their teenage years. One, their fandom kind of goes into hibernation and they discard like the playthings of youth, or they kind of they double down on their fandom and really continue even though what they're a fan of may not be around so much, like Star Wars was back in late 80s, early 90s. Which type of, this is a terrible way of asking which type of fan were you, but what did your fandom go through during that time?
Right. So it was during the dark times, obviously. So, it was, for me, it kind of went into hibernation for those years. I was already part of the nerd group because I was into role playing and stuff like that, but not in terms of, it was, and I didn't have the cosplay really wasn't a thing back then unless you went to the movie premieres, which there were no movie premieres for Star Wars. So it wasn't really a thing. And so, it kind of went into, I appreciated it. When I got into college, the EU was growing. So then we got Thrawn and we got, Timothy Zahn's Heir to the Empire. So I got into the books for a while in the EU until I was enjoying them until everything became Super Weapon of the Week. And when they just started coming out with Super Weapon after Super Weapon, it just got repetitive. And I was just kind of like, okay, I'm good. And then we got the special releases in the 90s. So that kind of started getting me back towards it. And then when I got a family and had kids is really when Star Wars really started to come back for me. Yeah. And so now I had kids to start to share it with. And
that's really cool.
Kind of a two-part. I have two questions. One, when did you start collecting again? Like, were you always collecting, or is that something that evolved? And what made you start collecting again?
it started to evolve after I started the podcast, and I'll blame Scruffy and DB, my co-host, purely and plainly. Well, okay, so it started mainly because, again, my staff didn't know what to get me for Christmas, so they started to get me Christmas things, and some of the inexpensive things at the time were Funko Pops. Sure. You know, those are a nice inexpensive thing, and I like Funko Pops because they were okay. So we all know Star Wars, one of the biggest influences with Kurosawa and all the samurai films. And to me, for some reason in my head, I've connected bobbleheads and Japanese culture. And and it's a bit of a stretch, even though bobbleheads I think are really, I want to say Polish maybe, but
I don't know.
there was I did research on this once, and there's a similar type of the doll in Japanese culture, and I'm blanking on what it's called right now. But so for me, it was kind of, it was a neat little thing. It's a bobblehead. And to me, I made this thread connection from bobbleheads to samurai films. And so once that locked itself into my brain, I was like, all right, I'm into Funko Pops now. You know, I don't mind especially anything concerning the Mandalorians, Boba Fett, that kind of thing. And I've got other pieces. I've got my other favorite thing that if Scruffy asked me this once, and he said, if you had to get rid of your whole collection and you could only have one type of thing, what would you have? And for me, it would be artwork.
I hard agree.
Various prints, artwork.
Yes. Because
again, I think to me, that's the closest thing you can have on your wall that ties back to the visual medium, which is how Star Wars started in the first place, on the big screen.
Yeah.
Yeah. And my second follow-up question, you were talking about getting back into Star Wars as your family grew.
Yeah, right.
How did you introduce your kids to Star Wars?
Through the joys of capitalism.
Great answer.
So
an answer that Disney lawyers would appreciate. Yeah.
Right, exactly. So when the special editions started to roll out, and then we started getting into the prequel era, the merchandising machine was in full gear. So you could get anything and everything. And I think it started with lightsabers, the those hard plastic retractable ones.
Oh yeah. Those things left bruises.
They did. And thankfully I was a good dad, so I didn't do that. But I will tell you the one thing I did get was it wasn't a Star Wars thing. It was if you might remember, the Incredible Hulk hands that were big foam.
Oh yes.
Those you could have fun with the kids, but
I meant the kids on the kids. I think I got a bruise or two from those, but anyway.
Yeah. But no, and my youngest, especially, my youngest boy, he really became enraptured with Darth Vader, and so he had Darth Vader everything. So it was just, through the toy stores being flush with product. Oh. And for me, I wasn't buying it for myself. I was buying it for my kids.
Oh, yeah. That's what we did.
Wink, wink, right?
Well, you had kids.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
That's what my dad always jokes. He's like, I had kids so I could just have my hobbies back.
Yeah, exactly. And so I had fun with that. We had the toys, and I don't know if we really have many of those around. Actually, I went over to my son's apartment, one of my other son's apartments, and he still had his lightsaber.
Wow.
I love and that. He's through college. He's a working nurse now, and still has that in his apartment. So yeah, it made a little bit of an impression on them, and it was really just through the gift of sharing Star Wars with them. And then we had the VHS, started with the VHS of the movies, and we would watch those. Video games, the original Battlefront 2 to this day is my favorite video game because of the hours and hours and hours I spent playing split screen with my kids.
Yeah.
And, and that was just a blast. And nothing,
so cool.
Nothing will ever top that in terms of video games for me.
Yeah.
That shared experience with them.
Yes. And that's one of the great, I love video games where you can have that shared experience. I played Battlefront, the newer Battlefront 2, the 2017 Battlefront 2, a lot with a friend of mine. And it's just a good way for us to hang out when we don't have very much options to hang out anymore. Now, this is going to jump around a little bit, but we talked about the podcast a little bit, and I want to talk more about your experience with the podcast.
Yeah.
And the idea that you've talked to a lot of fans, and I'm sure you've covered a lot of what they like and dislike. But when it comes to creating stories, what do you think is the role of the fan within the Star Wars franchise?
Wow, that's an outstanding question. Everybody's experience is going to be different, and you see that in the fandom, and you're going to see that with not just Star Wars, but any fandom.
Yes.
Sports. You've got your diehard. You got the people that go to the stadium and paint their faces and wear the mascot outfit, type outfits. And then you've got the casual fans, that are there a couple games a summer or a winter or, whatever. You've got the people that get totally into fantasy leagues, for sports, that know all the stats and, your sports version of your Wikipedia nerds, right?
Absolutely.
And you're going to get your I live in Michigan, so as a Lions fan, I just have to love them, and through, you know what I'm talking about, Dave? You just have to love them, right? And you just have to be, and so you've got fans like that in the Star Wars universe. And then you've got your ultra, what I call your ultra pious, fans in Star Wars. The people that are, because it's got Star Wars stamped on it, they're going to love it. No questions asked. And they're going to shove it down your throat. And I think the fan base is much more diverse out there than what social media represents. The squeaky wheel always gets the grease, which is either your ultra super fan lovers that throw it in your face or your trolls that throw it in your face. You're gonna get that. You're gonna get that regardless. And so I think our roles as fans is to just love what you love about it. And and also realize that if there's things you don't like about it, okay, that's fine. Yeah. But honestly, the truth of the world is nobody cares. I mean,
it's so true.
If more people were confident about what they love and are just content with it, one, you don't always have to proclaim it for all to hear, and two, you also don't have to proclaim what you hate for all to hear. I mean, it's but in the social media construct as it is, what gets clicks, it's either ultra love or ultra hate. But I think majority of the fan base, and I think there's a lot for the Star Wars fan base, there's a lot of people that aren't even on social about it. I was talking to somebody just recently and they had no idea what Star Wars Twitter was, they didn't know. It's not a space they're involved in. I'm only learned about it because of the podcast and networking and getting involved. But to take the long way back to the answer there for you, Dave, I think the role of every fan is just love what you love and be good with that, really.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a great answer. That's a really great answer.
Well, since we're talking about fandom, we feel like you do like a lot of work with conventions and like having guests and getting press passes. So how has conventions affected your view on Star Wars or the fandom in general?
So conventions, and that's another tie to my my fandom resurging for Star Wars. Scruffy and I went to Star Wars Celebration in Chicago back in late 19, and
that's really cool.
That when I going to that, I hadn't been to a con before, and so to go to that one and was just what a one to go to, right?
I was gonna say, wow, wait to just jump in the pool,
right. And we got two things. One, I saw the huge world of collecting because Scruffy and DB, they have a lot of the stuff from when they were kids, and they're rebuilding collections, and they're really into the vintage stuff. Yeah. And that's kind of what we talk about a lot. And seeing all of that at Celebration, seeing all the collecting, seeing the fandom, and two things really got me revved up there. One was we got into the panel for the Mando. Mando hadn't dropped yet. It was still new. So we got to see the sizzle reel, and then watching Scruffy go around looking at different vendors' tables and what he was picking and why he was picking this or paying that, and seeing the dollar signs that were going back and forth over some of that stuff. Kind of blew my mind. And so that really kind of got me going again on the fandom. And then the other part of it was, on Star Wars, the being a fan again, the other part was that everybody just got along.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're face to face, it doesn't matter whether it was a Rey or a Kylo or a Lando or the running of the Wills, the people that run with the ice cream makers. Everybody's just there to celebrate what they love, right?
Yeah.
And that really kind of opened my eyes to, it gives me a good comparison between social media and real life. And there, everybody was just there to get along, and it didn't matter. DB's daughter, who's a tween now, is a huge Rey fan. Loves Rey, and I couldn't be happier for it. Sequels are, they're okay. They're not my jam, and that's okay. They didn't resonate with me. They weren't designed to necessarily resonate with me, and I'm okay. I'm not one of those they're not canon guys. It's Star Wars. And
either none of it is canon or all of it's canon.
Right.
There's
I'm actually really looking forward to the Rey film. I'd like to see what they do with it. I'd like to I'd like to see them get outside of the Skywalker saga and tell some more stories, different stories. Seeing that the fandom can get along just fine when you're face to face and not you're not behind your keyboard and a computer screen.
Mm-hmm.
It's a different world. And then we go to, because of the podcast, we go to a convention in Nashville every year called ICCC, Imperial Commissary Collectors Convention. Mm-hmm. And this will be our third year. And in fact, yesterday I just got notified we got our press passes for that.
Yay!
And that's been a great thing for us as a podcast. Talk about vintage stuff. You want to go to any con that has vintage stuff. That's what this con is built around, is the Imperial Commissary, which is a Facebook group, and it's all 77 to 85 toys. And so the convention is like 90% that. It's all vintage.
Mm-hmm.
And
wow. That's
so
really cool.
As a collector, as a collector, if you're looking for something, you want to hit that show.
Yeah.
And the other part is it's not corporate. It's by fans, for fans. And we get our press passes for free. We've kind of gotten to know them. They have a podcast space. They give back to the podcast because we're the ones spreading the word. We're the ones, putting the word out. And so they show us a lot of love. We show them a lot of love, and it's gotten us a lot of experience. It got our first experience live streaming. Like I said, we'd always done everything, pre-recorded, audio only. And so it got us networking more with other people. The podcast space there is severely under-noticed by the general public. So in the podcast studio, there's seating for like 30 to 50 people, but there might only be a dozen of us in there. And we're getting to watch, and they do 15-minute intimate interviews with all the celebrities attending the con. So you get to see, we were 3 of a dozen people to get and basically watch a private live stream with Anthony Daniels, which how cool is that?
Amazing.
Right? The voice actors from Clone Wars and from last year, it was a Rebels theme, and and being a press, you can kind of go up and talk to the celebrities and meet with them. And that's that's kind of how we got Vanessa Marshall, and because she was at ICCC last year, and then hearing some of the stories, and John Rhys Davey. Wow. I mean, he's not a Star Wars guy, but one of the best interviews that I got to watch, probably second only to Steve Blum and his wife, Mary Elizabeth. Steve Blum is the voice of Zeb in Rebels.
Yes.
And probably hundreds of other anime and animated characters. And
he's a little bit like Vanessa in that way, that he's in a lot of stuff you have no idea.
Yeah. And so the cons have had a huge impact on us in terms of, as a podcast, as a show, really getting to meet people, network. We've gotten to interview some very cool people. If you hang out long enough, you get invited to sit in on interviews with some of the celebrities.
Yeah.
Which is really cool. The guys got to a bucket list interview of theirs, which was Jim Swearingen. And really only hardcore collectors are going to know that name.
Yeah, but I don't know it.
Yeah. Jim is the guy at Kenner back in 77 when Lucas was shopping around for a toy maker. He sent the script out. The movie hadn't been dropped yet, so people hadn't seen it. He had sent the scripts out to all the major toy manufacturers. And at Kenner, it kept dropping from desk to desk to desk because nobody wanted to read it. It hit Jim's desk. He took it home, read it, came back, and convinced his superiors at Kenner to pick up the toy line. He said, "We've got to do this." Yeah. And he designed a lot of those initial toys as well. And so the guys got to do an interview with him. And
that's cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
So
what a neat piece of Star Wars history I didn't know. Thank you for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's little things like that we've gotten to learn because of the cons, you know, and because of that. And then again, just the interaction with fans. And we try to stay at the hotels where the celebrities are staying so that, you know, you just... You run into them walking down the hallways. And
grabbing a beer.
Right, exactly. And it's been a great experience. And then, like I said, at those conventions as well, the fans are just there to have a good time. No one's hating on each other. No one's making fun. No old 50-year-old guys like us are making fun of kids dressing up as Kylo or Rey or, you know, we don't care. Love what you love, you know. And it's
Basil.
Right, Basil. I'm all for Basil. Love Basil. It's just there to have a good time.
Yeah.
And it shows what the fandom really is.
Yeah.
You started the podcast, I want to say 2019, is that correct?
No, we actually started 21.
Oh, in 21. Okay.
Yeah.
So all the sequel movies were out by the time you started the podcast. Not much of the TV shows. Mando was definitely out. Through the podcast, has your opinion changed in any way on whether it's the prequels or the sequels? The OT, I don't think your opinion is going to change all that much. But has there been any kind of big seismic shift in your opinion on any of the properties since starting the podcast?
Great question. The prequels never bothered us, and I can say that for my co-hosts as well. Maybe they were on the fence about the Jar Jar thing, but for me, again, I had little kids at the time, so Jar Jar was fun. You know, Jar Jar didn't bother me because I know that's a point of contention with prequel. And because I was raising a family and I didn't have time to be online. I didn't have time to be in chat rooms and the fledgling era of social. And so I didn't see any of that hate. I wasn't reading magazines. I wasn't, you know, I was a kind of a normie in terms of Star Wars fans back then, you know, just enjoying the movies, I hadn't even really watched much of the animation. I didn't get into Clone Wars until after Star Wars Celebration in 19. You know, I was just living life, doing the family thing. And so none of that prequel stuff bothered me. So I haven't really changed my opinion about that. If anything, we've opened up to more, you know, concepts and ideas and wanting, you know, when after Disney procured Lucasfilm and Star Wars, you know, we were like, okay, well, let's tell some different stories, you know.
Yeah.
Let's jump outside of the Skywalker saga. Let's go in. It's a big galaxy, you know.
Yeah.
And there's other stories. There's other interpretations. I like what they're doing in terms of expanding the lore on Acolyte. I like the fact that they're testing different genres or different styles of shows. The guys were not as big of fans as Andor really in the beginning.
Really? Interesting.
Because it was a lot of walking and talking and walking and talking and walking and talking and walking and talking. And, you know, it was we dubbed it the Lord of the Rings of the Star Wars universe. You know, 'cause it was just big landscape, you know, and
that's fair.
You know, and they will always tease me. If you ever hear them tease me about character development, it was because of Andor, because I was always talking about all the character development, you know, and deeper levels of it than your other shows.
Yeah.
Although for me, again, nothing will ever top Mando in terms of live action streaming. But and then we had Chris Kempshall on, Dr. Chris Kempshall, and we did our Andor wrap-up show with him. And the more he talked about Andor, you could see the opinions starting to change a little bit, you know? As it was taking them to a deeper level. So yeah, the conversations have affected us. As far as the sequels go, we're mixed. Again, I don't hate them, but I don't really put them on rewatch either. I've tried. I've got my critiques about it. There were good things and there were things I was like, whatever.
Yeah.
I don't hate any of it. And so we haven't really gotten to the point where it's changed our opinions about the sequels yet. I appreciate the fact that, again, they brought in a more fandom. They brought their, we're OTers. You've got your people that came into their fandom during the prequels, during Clone Wars, and then you've got your fans that came in during the sequels, and that's their Star Wars, and that's okay. I'm good. I'm happy. I couldn't be happier for him. The wife surprised me when we went to Galaxy's Edge in January.
So fun.
Walking around. It's all mostly sequel themed.
It is.
It's fun.
Yeah.
You know, the whole interaction.
Very Star Wars style, too.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
The whole interaction with Kylo and that whole thing that they do in the crowd work and everything. Great. Fun. Absolutely fun. And to me, that's kind of one of the number one tenets of what Star Wars should be, is just fun.
The one thing they didn't nail was the blue milk.
Yes.
It doesn't taste like anything. That was my one critique of Batuu. I was like, they could have done better with the blue milk.
Did you guys have the stuff they came out with just recently that you can buy in the grocery stores?
No.
I haven't. I haven't even seen it. I've seen the Oreos, but I haven't seen the blue milk anywhere.
Oh, yeah, the Oreos,
The blue milk that you can get in the stores right now is what I'm calling diabetes in a milk jug.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, the sugar content is off the charts. I mean, it's not bad. It's not bad. You know, I had one half gallon. I could only drink one glass at a time because the sugar was through the roof. And But I told
what a
Scruffy,
great milk for Lucky Charms.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
Right?
Send somebody our age into a diabetic shock.
Oh my God.
Yes.
Wait, so we were talking about opinions changing or not changing. Yeah. I'm curious, like, what would you like to see in the future of Star Wars? You kind of already mentioned being excited for the Rey film.
Yeah, just more stories, more, I want to see more High Republic content. I think there's, a lot of potential there. I think what they've built, I only read the first 3 novels of Phase 1. I haven't really delved into it too much. I like the fact that they're doing the Acolyte. I'd like to see them do other kinds of, as much as the vocal fandom would probably hate, try different styles of shows.
Sure.
Let's what would a live action or maybe even an animated Lost Stars, Claudia Gray's Lost Stars be like?
Oh, yeah.
A romance. Going back to Carson Teva, that I mentioned at the beginning of the show, one of the things that, and he liked this post when I put it on social media a couple of years ago, I always thought it would be fun to do a buddy cop film.
Yes.
Like a Lethal Weapon in space with Carson Teva playing the Murtaugh role, and then Max Lloyd-Jones, who played Lieutenant Reed in the Book of Boba Fett, where they pull Mando over for speeding. How fun would that be to do a Lethal Weapon style show?
Oh my God.
With those, because I can just hear Carson Teva saying, "I'm just getting too old for this shit."
Yes,
so good.
I don't mind them trying new things, new formats. Try it.
Yeah.
It's a big galaxy, but I also want to see them shoot into another corner of the galaxy that has nothing to do with anything we know, just for a different story. And again, I like the fact that they're in Acolyte, they're bringing in different groups that see the Force in different ways. I think that's great.
It is cool.
It's a big universe. People are going to view things. We already got kind of a taste of that with the Witches of Dathomir. I mean, they already use the Force in a different way. And so I thought the whole thread thing with the Witches Coven, great. I love
cool.
it. It's just more expansion into different corners of the universe, different pockets of the universe. The Rey, like I said, the Rey film, I'd like to see what they can do with some of those characters and further develop them, give them their own story that's not overshadowed by the Skywalker saga. Let those characters grow and breathe on their own 2 feet.
Love that.
And then I'm always a sucker for anything Mandalorian. Bring in more Mandalorians.
More Mando.
Yeah, more Mando.
And speaking of all this, for you, what are the top 3 elements that make Star Wars Star Wars?
So, let's see. Fun. I've got to have fun.
Love that.
Got to have fun with it. 2, movie magic. So it kind of goes back to that first impression, something bigger than life, something grandiose in scope. And then the 3rd, that's a tough one. Yeah, I guess just compelling characters,
Yes.
Not losing the focus that in the end, like any good science fiction, it's all about the story of the characters.
Yes.
And their journey.
Yeah.
It's great.
That.
Yeah. And so, what is your favorite Star Wars memory?
So, again, a twofold answer in a way. So, originally walking into that theater, seeing Hoth on the big screen, that started it all. And more recently, favorite memory would probably be seeing the inside of C-3PO's head on a podcast. Yeah.
Sorry, he's one of my faves. That's so cool.
Yeah. So when we had Chris on, Chris Bartlett, he's also the official live C-3PO at live, like, red carpet events and things like that. And so he has a fully functioning suit of C-3PO because he plays C-3PO. And so he got the helmet out while we were talking to him and showed us the inside, because he was talking about how poor the visibility is on the inside of the helm. And so he pointed the inside of C-3PO's head at the camera.
So right.
And I mean, that's just, how do you top that?
You don't.
You don't. That's amazing. That's fantastic.
Outside of maybe George handing you a lightsaber, you really
right.
Yes.
Right. It's just, I mean, just how cool. It's those unexpected little things that you run into running a show that you just get to learn about.
So cool.
Yeah, and it is so much fun. So we've talked a lot about your Star Wars love, about first seeing Hoth on the screen when you walked into the theater, about developing your podcast, hanging out with your friends, and talking Star Wars to the point where you're like, we need to do a show about this. Mm-hmm. Being a collector of guests, of experiences, of picking up on those and finding value in them is really amazing. Through all of this, can you tell us, what does Star Wars mean to you?
Yeah. Star Wars, in the beginning, Star Wars has evolved for me. Star Wars, again, was fun. It was movie magic. It was fantasy in the beginning. And really, it has, through my journey, it has culminated in community for me. When you get to a certain age, it's not like you're still making a lot of friends out there. It's not like you're going out to the playground and making friends, right? So you get to a certain point in life where you got your family, your immediate friends, and you don't really make new friends. Mm-hmm. But this Star Wars is, to what it really means to me now, is community. It means talking to folks like you, and everybody else that I get to interact with now. And it's great. It's just absolutely great. Community and love.
Yeah.
Love that.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for coming on the show and hanging with us tonight.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. There's one question that you didn't ask that I was ready for.
Oh, let's do it. What did I ask you?
So it was, do I do any impersonations?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So, right. Just so you know,
we changed things up.
We changed it up because a lot of people were going, no. And so we decided to lose that one and then add one that is tailored to the guest.
Guest specific.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
But you know what?
I'll do my sound effect.
Okay.
Can you do any Star Wars impressions or impersonations?
Yes, I have one that I've been doing since I was a kid, and it makes Scruffy laugh to this day, which is a Wookiee. So,
I'm so excited.
So let me take another drink of water really quick.
Yep. Got prep.
Okay. Of course, now I'm getting performance anxiety. So it's
That's really good. That's so hard to do, like a vocal fry with the riff. It's actually like, I was a singer in high school. That's so hard to do with your... I can't do it. That's awesome.
So there you go.
All right.
So, yeah. Thanks for having me on. It's been
my God. Joy. Where can people find you?
Yeah. So on the kind of the three main socials, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I think we're on Threads. I don't do as. I think so. I think when I do my Instagram post, it says, "Do you want to share with Threads?" And I click yes.
That's hilarious.
So. Yes. I was trying to keep up on TikTok, have not been able to do that.
It's hard.
We didn't get a lot of traction there. But really, we have a site. If you go to beacons.ai/Brown Squadron, you can find links to all of our shows, live streams, social medias, all of that. We do weekly live streams on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter every Thursday night at 8 p.m. Eastern. We've got another show coming up. And then people can also email us at brownsquadron@gmail.com.
Right on.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, and go follow. Their show's really fun.
And all those links will be in the podcast notes as well. So if anyone wants to just click on through, they can do so. Brown Leader, thank you so much for joining us tonight. This was so much fun. I had a blast.
Well, thank you guys. Thanks for having me on. And like I said, I really love what you guys are doing with the show, and you guys are on my weekly rotation, and I look forward to hearing all the guests that you have on.
Well, may the force
Thank
be
you very
with
much.
Yeah, may the force be with you guys.
Like discovering, it's like going down the creek and turning over rocks and finding crawdads.
Right. Mm-hmm.
I just turned into I can't even think of his name. Sam. Oh God, I can't even think of his pen name. He came in with the comet and died with the comet. 76 years later. You know what? Never mind.
We're
Moving
gonna cut
on.
all this. Will be in our secret deleted scene. Will be the
Yes.
Dave had a stroke.
Why
No.
can't I think he's a big writer from the 1800s. Sam Clemens.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't know that about the comet. That's interesting.
Yeah. He was born in the year that okay, I apologize.
That's right. You're right. You're right. He did. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I forgot all about that. Mm-hmm. Back in my day.
Yes, exactly. Okay. Hi, this is Dave, and before we get to the show, I wanted to ask you a favor. One of our goals this year is to grow the show so that What Does Star Wars Mean to You reaches more listeners. And that's where we're asking you for help. And it's really easy. Wherever you listen to us, please hit that subscribe button. If you're liking the show, give us a 5-star rating and review on the platform you listen to us. We make a lot of fun of the algorithm and the smash that button thing, but it really does help us get noticed by new fans. And if you want to join in on the conversation, find us on social at Star Wars Mean to You. That's Star Wars Mean, the number 2 in the letter U. Now, let's chat some Star Wars.